Greetings everyone, and welcome back to another installment in the iWish series, a series in which I investigate rather dubious tech products sold on various sites around the web just to see if they're any good. Most of the time they are not, but I like to buy this stuff so you don't have to. And this will be the second item in the recent AliExpress lot that I recently went ahead and purchased because you folks generously donated to seeing some products reviewed on the channel, so thank you to all of these fine folks for kindly donating to see more cheapo garbage on the channel. I really do appreciate it all. You are all putting your hard-earned money towards this idiot reviewing cheapo stuff on the internet. Thank you regardless. I appreciate it, and I hope you're honestly getting some good entertainment out of this. But we found this on a live stream a couple of weeks back, and you folks said, yeah, purchase it. We really want to see this thing because we noticed something with this console. Apart from it looking like a hybrid ROG Ally and kind of a Steam Deck and kind of a couple of other things thrown in there, we think it runs Android because in the video that's on the listing, they go to adjust the volume and what looks like an Android volume slider pops up. So this will be really interesting to have a look at. Now I will do a disclaimer because this does come with a whole lot of ROMs installed on it. I will say just for my own safety that I do not endorse the sales of these products. Pretty much all the games I will be playing I actually do own physical copies of, like Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. I'll be trying that on there, but I won't be linking this down in the description. If you really wanted it, you'll be able to find it if you look hard enough. And also before I continue on, just to let you know that timestamps are in the description as well as the pinned comment so you can skip along to wherever you'd like to be, as this is the usual rambly and chill video where I'm going to be looking at a cheapo game console that's probably not going to hold up too well, but hey, you never know. I'm really intrigued to have a look at the, what is it called on AliExpress? It's called the E6 Handheld Game Console Portable Video Game 5-inch IPS screen retro game box with 2.4G wireless controller support PSP, PS1, N64. PSP and N64 on this. Oh boy, wonder how that'll go. But currently it's $73.94 Australian with free shipping on AliExpress, which I'll display a more advanced currency conversion chart. It's got a couple more currencies on there. I hope this helps folks in other countries work out how much this is worth. And look, for $74 Australian, it's a cheapo game console. If it can play some games on it as just a retro emulation thing, then that's not too bad, but there's plenty of other cheapo emulation consoles from Anbernic and stuff like that that have way better support and better emulation than what this thing can do, but it's the possibility that this is running Android, and I want to see if I can break it. So stay tuned, we might have some mad hacks in this. You can also get this with two handles, which is two controllers, and they look sort of like Super Nintendo controllers, but with two analog sticks there. And you can also get multiple configurations with a 64 gig micro SD card and 128 gig, but I've just went with the absolute cheapest one. I'm going to quickly go through the listing, so if this isn't your thing, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. I'll leave a timestamp on screen if you want to skip the listing. So we've got some quick specs here, which says it's the E6 handheld game console with a battery capacity of 5,000 mAh, which is a lithium polymer battery, DC 5V 2 amps, battery life 3 hours, rated capacity 3600 mAh. That makes a whole lot of sense. Product colors is black, white and green. I chose white because it resembled the ROG Ally, kind of. You've got 32 gig, 64 gig and 128 gig versions available. I just went with 32 gig. E6 dual player version come with two 2.4G wireless controls and complementary OTG connection cables, implementing a two-player game through OTG and Type-C interface connection. It has Type-C. Fair enough then. We have 5-inch pro gaming device, full fit IPS screen, hold joystick, supports PSP, Mini? Oh, okay. Well, there's a mini console out there, and N64, but then it says 4K Ultra HD, and there's a little dude at the top here looking cool with these goggles on. That's the device there. And you got KO going on. I can't work out what game it is. That's not King of Fighters, is it? I don't know what that is. But yeah, see the look of it? It's kind of like an ROG Ally, kind of, but it's a 5-in. It's not a 5-inch, 5-in. Scrolling down a bit further, it says GAMEMT processor made for high FPS handheld games. Processor crafted with advanced technology, runs large arcade games smoothly at low power, no lag, no delay, RAM-ROM 1+8 gig, GAMEMT chip RK3326. So it's a ROC chip. And what I just said with the GAMEMT thing is on this picture with the GAMEMT on a chip going onto a PCB, onto a socket, onto a fish tank. No, that's not correct, is it? But at least it's got powerful performance, enhanced experience, and 60Hz high refresh clarity, paired with IPS, clear without harming eyes. I wonder how the screen quality will be in this though. I wonder if it'll be like that PS Vita Nintendo Switch thing that I had a look at a while ago. Now, this would just be a usual handheld game console, just a cheapy one, nothing spectacular about it, but it's actually got LEDs built into it. I don't know if it's RGB, but it's just called the Game Atmosphere Light, always Escort Victory. I wonder how bright they'll be, but I'll soon see when I start unboxing it. Quick heat dispersion, cool and safe, strong cooling foundation, meets all environmental cooling needs, effective, yet silent. I don't even think this would have a fan in it, but if it does, I'll be surprised. 5000 mAh extended playtime on the go, full charge gives 5 to 8 hours, continuous play, passionate gaming without interruption. See what I mean? It's confusing. It said 3600 mAh in 3 hours, and then it says more here. Just agree with it. 5-inch 60Hz refresh rate, because 60Hz refresh rate is a brand new amazing feature that's only just come out according to these guys. Full fit, IPS high def screen, wide viewing angle, richer colors, more immersive gaming experience. I still don't know what that game is though, but they've got that cool effect on the screen there to show that it's good quality or something. Look at the D-pad as well, by the way. That looks absolutely horrendous. Whole joystick, constant victory support, 360-degree rotation, fine-tuned control, precise gaming direction, rapid return. In other words, it has joysticks. They definitely won't be anything special though. Sleek controller design, comfortable grip, confident control, raised grip on the back of the controller, naturally comfortable hold, features esports grade linear trigger buttons, precise operations. I bet the buttons are going to feel absolutely spongy, but you never know, this thing could be really good. Retro games galore, comes with 13 emulators, classic arcade games from your childhood, dive back in time with siblings, friends, classmates, relive those moments with Iron Fist 5, Sunset Rider, Street Fighter, 1945, The Punisher, Fatal Fury, Mech Warrior, Street Combat, Dino Crisis, Dragon Warrior, Legendary Heroes, Dragon Ball, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Romance of the Three Kingdoms again, Samurai Spirits, Double Dragon, Primal Island, Knights of the Round, Crescent Moon Knights, and One Piece. So all arcade games at this current point in time. Sports 13 emulators. You've got the 2 Capcom arcade things, Famicom, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, MAME or Arcade, Megadrive, N64, NeoGeo, PlayStation 1, PlayStation Portable, and Super Famicom or Super Nintendo. Bonus TF card, instant game load, complimentary TF card, massive storage to cater to diverse needs. Say goodbye to storage woes, get your desired game loaded in a flash. I get it. Flash, because it's flash memory. Sneaky. We get a look at the ports though. It looks like it does have Type-C and HDMI on this? I wonder if it does. Product details. Please review before purchase. Power button, TF card slot, power port, HDMI. It does have HDMI. Volume controls, menu, select functions button, start button. Product name, E6 handheld arcade gaming device. Battery is 5000 mAh. And then it says rated capacity once again. I'm confused with that. And that's pretty much all that's in the listing. I was gonna have a look at the reviews because it's actually rated 4.7 stars out of 5. So people must like this thing. But I want to take a look at this myself and unbox this and have a first look at this E6 console. Taking only about a week from China to Australia, I have this yellow package. Let's take a look at this thing. Here it is. It's the E6 by GameKid, I guess. Kind of a standard looking box. Does this resemble anything that anyone knows of? Around the box is just all white, nothing else. We do have white on the back there, and then game console, E6, wait a second, EVAT Master Consulting GmbH from Germany? But then it says China there. I'm confused. Okay, let's crack this open and have a look at this thing. We're in. We have a tempered glass screen protector. That's cool. The console itself, which has a bit of weight to it. Underneath the plastic, we have an instruction manual. Is it in English? Yes, it is. I may have to follow this. Start coining. Okay, that's what that's looking like, and you can search for stuff, and the remarks, the picture of the machine is for reference, okie dokie, and yeah, you got your warranty card there. Which, do you send it to China or do you send it to Germany? I'm confused. You do get a Type-C cable in here, which has purple on it. Oh, that's kind of nifty. I haven't seen purple in the USB port. That's kind of unique. Maybe it's a high quality one. If it comes with a tempered glass screen protector, does that mean it's got a touch screen? I wonder if it does. But here it is. It's got some fingerprints on it already, which is helpful. But I'll take the screen protector off. Here we go. Nice. Wait, is there plastic on the D-pad? Oh my god, there's plastic on the D-pad. Okay, holding this in my hands, it actually feels quite good. Granted, I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but just holding it as it is, it actually doesn't feel too bad, and it's fairly solid as well. 2 analog sticks just there. The D-pad, which that feels horrendous. If you press left, you're pressing the whole thing down at the same time. That's going to be real fun to play around with. Then you've got the M button, which would be menu, select and start, X, Y, B, and A. They feel pretty mushy. Yeah, they feel pretty mushy. Not as tactile as I would have hoped for. You've got the 5-inch IPS LCD just there, and you can see the areas where this will light up, which I really can't wait to check out. On top, you do have the shoulder buttons there, which are just pretty clicky, but they feel okay. Then you have a volume rocker, and then you have on the go Type-C. Then you have another Type-C port for charging. The micro SD card, no branding, no nothing. Oh wait, hang on, there's branding on the back of it. That's what that is. Might be a Toshiba one or something? I don't know. At the bottom, not a whole lot going on there, just all plastic. And then coming to the back, we do have some ventilation. I mean, there's ventilation at the top here, but I don't think there's a fan in there. As I said, if there is, I'd be very surprised. But that's pretty much around this thing. So let's go ahead and switch this on and see what this $76 console can do. Is it a welcome? No, it's a game, kid. Oh, the LEDs. Look, look, look. Whoa. They're kind of bright. Not gonna lie, they're kind of actually pretty bright. If this is Android, I wonder if I can dump the system files. But let me just see if it actually is Android. There it is. That's not touchscreen though. Okay, but it's got on the go. So we could potentially hook up a keyboard to this. I reckon that'll work. Ooh. Is that stereo? It sounds like there's two speakers in there. Don't know if they're stereo or not, but we have searching for a game. Then we have favorites there. Then we have eFootball 2023. Okie dokie. Settings, brightness, language, time, system information, factory reset, PSP, N64, PS1, MAME, NeoGeo, CPS1, CPS2, NES, SFC, Megadrive, Game Boy, GBA, GBC, and FBA. I'm just mashing all the buttons, and I have found a key test menu.
Right, left, right, right. Right, 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 left, left, right, left.
That's slightly nightmarish. Can I do anything with the lights, or no? Oh, I can bump up the brightness though. That screen, not gonna lie, that screen actually looks fairly good for what it is. The colors are actually quite sharp on there. That's honestly looking pretty good. Using that D-pad though, I mean, it's usable, but I wonder how it will go like in Pokemon Puzzle Challenge and stuff. Alright, I'm curious. I just want to see if I can actually get into Android at this point in time. Oh, that doesn't work. Yes, it does. Aha! We broke it. It's Android. 100% it's Android. Actually, let me plug in a mouse. That might help me. They've probably stripped away a lot of it. Oh, there's my mouse. Okay. Can I open up menu keys or anything? Okay, so I can use a mouse, but I can't do much else. Oh, I took a screenshot. It doesn't actually appear that there's a launcher on this. I'm just pressing all the buttons and hoping it does something. It does something. We can open contacts. There's a calendar. So I wonder if I can open up contacts right, then plug in my mouse. Oh, I broke it. Wait, I got an idea. This is probably going to be stupid, but anyways. What about if we were to just grab this Type-C doohickey thing, and then plug in the keyboard, and then plug in the mouse, and there we should have expanded functionality. Also, the device isn't making any noise whatsoever, so I have a feeling that there's no fan in here. If I go to contacts and then go to settings, can I do anything here though? About contacts, terms of service. Wonder if this will do anything. Failed to open the URL, privacy policy, open source licenses. Okay. Okay, we have a keyboard. Oh! I've got into the SD card, but I haven't got into the file manager though. Okay. Oh. No, there's no Bluetooth on this, so I can't send it anything. I think I may have broken it. I think Bluetooth's gonna keep coming up now. Oh boy. What if I switch this off, right? Oh, your tablet will shut down. This is so janky, but I'm just curious to see. I'm gonna hold power and volume up. See if that does anything. Okay, we have recovery. Oh, I can't move? Oh, volume up and down power. Duh. If I go into the calendar, I should be able to get to settings via that, actually. Let's see if I can do that. Settings. About a calendar. God, they really didn't want me to break this, did they? Can't connect it to a PC. If we put micro SD card and then we plonk that in here, shouldn't it pop up? What if we take the micro SD card out while it's on? No? Oh, wait. If we do this, right, it should pop up. No? Wait, what if the phone dialer opens up? I've added a phone number, but I can't call it. I can't even message it. That's broken too. Sometimes with these Android things, you can drag from the side, but this isn't working in this scenario. Oh, see, that I thought that would work, but that doesn't work. As far as I can do is settings, and then I can go to accounts, and then I can do this, but sometimes you can click up here as well. It doesn't work. Hi, I'm back. It's been about a week, and I've been playing around with this console, and I have some updates for you all. So number one, I couldn't break into Android, and looking up this console, it turns out that the older batch of these, you could actually boot into safe mode, and it would boot straight into normal Android, and then you could do whatever you wanted to. With this batch, you can't do that. You boot into safe mode, it just says safe mode down the bottom there. So unfortunately, I can't break into Android as of yet, but I may hold a live stream where you folks can suggest some mad hacks we try on this, and maybe we could do something, but I'm not too sure. The second thing is, I've tested this pretty thoroughly. I've played games on most of the systems, and from my testing, the battery lasted about 2.5 hours before it needed to be charged again, and charging this up took a very, very long time. All hope is not lost with this console, as there is actually custom firmware available for this that was made by someone called HackerOut, and while it's not perfect, it does offer a lot more functionality than what this bare-bones system has to offer. I was thinking about doing the custom firmware on this, but I'd rather just review this as it is out of the box and then give my thoughts on it as it is. If you folks want me to try custom firmware on this, I can, but I'm just not too sure when I'll get around to that, that's all. But if you do have this console, I'll leave a link to the GitHub page down in the description below, so if you want to try it yourself, feel free, but as I said, I'll just stick with what is offered on the system by default. So now let me actually demonstrate to you all how games run on this. And instead of starting at PSP, I think I'm going to start with NES. So go into NES, and we've got Super Mario Brothers right there. Open it up, and there it is. Not a problem. So B is turbo, Y is normal jumping, and you've got to hold X at the top to run, and then press Y that way. It runs fine. It runs pretty good. This is NES. Capable. More than capable to play NES. I mean, if you have a console that struggles with NES, then something's definitely wrong here. But if you press menu, you go into this little menu, which you can manage save states if you wanted to. Loading status just doesn't do anything. I'm not sure what that does. Then you have handle controls, which looks a little something like this. So you would be able to then map A to A, B to B, X to X, Y to Y, etc. And then if I do this and continue playing, well, the controls are still kind of a little bit iffy. It's a really weird mapping order that the controls are. I've just got to map X to B, and Y to A. And once I've done that, I can continue playing, and I should be able to play it as normally. Which, there we go, that's more as it should be played. And it's fine. So that's one thing that you'll have to do if you were to purchase this console, is you've got to stuff around with the controls, because none of the games are accurately mapped. Then there's also another issue as well. You probably noticed that the screen ratio is stretched. There's not a whole lot you can do about that on this. Next up is Super Nintendo, which I'll just play Mighty Morphin Power Rangers just as an example. The sound emulation isn't too bad. The speakers do sound quite good for what they are. Yeah, unfortunately, the screen ratio is stretched, and you can't do anything about it. There's no way to change it. There's no button combinations that you can do to open up a menu to change it, as far as I know. So you just have to pretty much play it as it is. And this works perfectly fine. It's just a 2D beat-em-up game, and you get the point. Super Nintendo will be fine on this, but let me try something a bit more advanced for Super Nintendo. For example, F-Zero, this is fine. It feels a little bit like a couple of frame dips sort of thing, like a frame skip. But overall though, Super Nintendo has been fairly good for me from my testing. Once again, it's just a matter of stuffing around with the controls. And speaking of controls, I can definitely say that D-pad is pretty useless. But I don't think I need to show you much more with Super Nintendo. I think you get the point there. Game Boy and Game Boy Color, pretty much the same thing. So I'll go straight to Game Boy Color, and I'll go to Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, which it's stretched, but that doesn't really matter as long as it runs. And it's quite loud too. So this, and we'll just do normal, and just Chikorita. Now, you only need one button for this anyways, but the D-pad is very important. So straight away, it just jumps around. You're going to need to move that D-pad quite fast to be able to do all this stuff, and I can't do it. I cannot do it. if I went really slow, yes, I could possibly work this out. You try and press left, and see what I mean? It goes in all sorts of directions. Yeah, I could use the analog stick, but analog stick with this game isn't really that accurate either. The analog stick's fine. I'd prefer the analog sticks over the D-pad any day of the week with this console. That's the one game where I need to have a very accurate D-pad for, and this fails in that. Game Boy and Game Boy Color will be fine on this. They'll run fine, it's just that they'll be stretched. So I think Game Boy Color's up next, and I'll show you Crash Bandicoot The Huge Adventure actually. Sound does get a little bit crunchy, but the good news is that it runs fine. I mean, you will experience some frame skips here and there, or frame dips, but I played through a couple levels quite comfortably with this, even though I just died. And you can use the shoulder buttons, do your slide spins if you want. So with it being stretched though, oh, wrong button, I don't know how I made that, but with it being stretched, it makes it fine for Game Boy Advance because of that aspect ratio. So this is not too bad at all. See how it gets a little choppy though? For the most part, it's fine with basic 2D games, but anything that might be 3D on Game Boy Advance starts to make things chug just a little bit. Here's Doom on Game Boy Advance. And here it is. I mean, it's fine. It's a little bit hard to control though. It's really iffy to control. And the sound is a bit crunchy. But it's good. You could probably get through the complete game of Doom on this. On Game Boy Advance. Funny thing is though, strafe is a bit sort of back to front at the moment, but that's easily fixed if you just go to the controls and set them. So that's no issues there. So we know that NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, pretty good at this point in time. But let's finish off Nintendo by going with N64. Here is where things get really, really interesting. So as you all know, I'm a big Doom fan. I love Doom 64. It's a fantastic game on the N64 that I played as a kid and never finished it. It was a very difficult game. So you might be thinking, alright, how does it run on this? There is actually stuff happening on the screen. It's just that this game is naturally so dark you can't see anything. I'll go to the options and I'll put the display all the way so now you'll be able to see it. If I got a new game, I thought I put the brightness all the way up. I didn't, obviously. What? The brightness is all the way up. Can you see the handgun now? Oh, there we go. You can kind of see it. There we go. Yeah, it runs, but it's chuggy. An important thing to note with N64 is if you go to the controls, you cannot set Z or the C buttons. So they've kind of tried to map it for you already. They've mapped Z to select, which is fine, and some of the C buttons are mapped to Y and X. While you can play through Doom, you may have to kind of claw grip it, and then go through the game just by sort of, you know, look around the corner, and then aim and fire. It's playable, but let me show you something that you can actually see. Like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I've turned the sound off, so let me do free skate. I'll pick my favorite skater, Jeff Rowley, and this is how it runs. Here we go. This is what it looks like. And sure enough, I can do grabs and stuff. And I can do flips. They're just on L2 and R2. I mean, I can't really say that's bad. It runs actually quite well. I actually landed a trick. Then if we come to the mapping, you definitely cannot change Z. It is stuck at select and there's not much you can do. But you can change L2 to Y. You can change R2 to there. You can change X to B, this is so confusing, and B to X, Y to L2, and then A to R2, and with that, I should be able to now just play it. No, I didn't do it right. This is so confusing, trying to set these. B was originally grinding, which is now X, then X itself should be B. Oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so what if I set L2 to Y and R2 to A, and then set A to L2 and Y to R2, and then continue playing. I mean, yeah, it's now slightly playable, but it's so confusing though. The controls are just so confusing to map, because now B is to grab, but I've set B to be X? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So as confusing as it is, N64 is playable, but it's just a matter of stuffing around with the controls and trying to work them out and mapping them all correctly. And you may be wondering about this analog stick. You may be thinking, well, can't you use that for the C buttons or something? You cannot map this to any button. There's no proper use for the right analog stick at all. So if you did want to play an N64 game that used maybe just A and B, shoulder buttons and Z, then you could probably get away with it, as it's fairly easy mapping. But when it comes to the C buttons being mapped to the shoulder buttons, it's a real confusing mess trying to work out what you're supposed to do. The console is capable of running N64 games. It just really depends on the game you play though. Just another quick example for N64. Here's another one of my favorite games, and that is Killer Instinct Gold. Now if I go to practice, select full gore, because he's sick, you can see the emulation is struggling, but you can play a full experience of Killer Instincts because all the buttons are mapped. So you can pull off some combos if you wanted to. But yeah, the right analog stick doesn't work for anything. See, it's chugging along, but that is the nature of this game. It is quite iffy with emulators and stuff, but I think you get an idea with N64. Can be done, controls are iffy, and it definitely stuffs around my brain trying to work out the controls. So let's move on, because we've got arcade stuff, PlayStation 1, PSP, and Megadrive. So I think I'll show you Megadrive, because Megadrive should just run perfectly fine, and I can tell you all, it definitely does. I have tried to add 32X and CD-ROMs. This is a hack as well, where you play as Knuckles. I have tried to play 32X and CD, and it just doesn't recognize the formats, which I actually have to tell you all about adding games to this. Let me come back to that real soon. You can see that it's stuttering a little bit. It's not super smooth, but it's playable, and while it is stretched still, it's fine. And Megadrive only using 3 buttons for the most part anyways. Those buttons are already mapped for you, and you can remap them anyways, so Megadrive gets a pass from me. That's honestly quite fine. But yes, I completely forgot to tell you how to add games, but I was kind of saving that for PlayStation 1 and PSP. So let me just quickly demonstrate the arcade stuff, then I'll move on to PlayStation 1 and PSP. So FBA doesn't come up with anything. I can't think of what FBA would be. Well, I haven't worked that out, so I'll try and figure out what that is. But we've got the Capcom systems. I'll just quickly demonstrate what these are like on this. And remember the coining button as well. There you go, coining button. You just choose bloke, start there. Sound is a bit meh, but here it is. Oh. Runs fine. Yep, you'll have to map the controls. It runs and it looks great. So no issues with that. And the same goes with Capcom System 2. I'll just play Street Fighter. Looks a little something like this. Playable. Perfectly playable, which I think we all would have known that arcade stuff would be working perfectly fine on this. So going into MAME, once again, I'll just try Street Fighter. But from what I quickly checked with arcade, not a problem. Once again, it looks good, it runs fairly good, so all up arcade stuff should be fine. I won, even though I was like dead. So, NeoGeo, I haven't tested as of yet, but I imagine that this should run perfectly fine as well. I'll just do King of Fighters 97 just as another example. I just pick anything. There we go. And this is NeoGeo. This is fine too. I just don't know much about NeoGeo either. From how it's running, looks good, runs fine, so let's move on. Because we're left with PS1 and PSP. So how to add games onto this thing is a little bit difficult. It's not too bad. Pretty much what you do is put the micro SD card in your computer, copy a ROM into the ROMs folder, then you have to open an Excel document, and then you have to manually add in the game. So you have to do the file name. So just for an example, Resident Evil 2.bin, then Resident Evil 2, then the Chinese name of Resident Evil 2, and then the abbreviation for it. So it would be RA2. That's how you add games onto this. So for some folks that might be a little bit complicated, but for me it was fairly easy. So if I come to PS1, I have added Resident Evil 2 and Pepsi Man. So I'm going to show you Resident Evil 2 first. The good thing with PlayStation 1 though is that the controls are pretty much mapped correctly. One or two buttons may be off, but here's Resident Evil 2. Oh, just running around in circles because the D-pad. Don't worry about that. You can use the analog stick and off you go, and then perfect. I mean, it's not the best emulation. It's reasonable enough that I played until I got to the RPD and got through a few of the areas there and then pretty much gave up. But yeah, you just do this and we can... Should I do the scene reenactment that I did in the Power Kitty video? Hold your fire, I'm a human.
Oh, sorry about that.
It never gets old. It never, ever, ever gets old. And the screen is actually at the brightest setting, by the way. It's just darker areas sort of struggle to see. If you're playing in low light conditions, then it's fine. But I can say testing PS1 on this was no problems, and the emulation was actually fairly good. I'll quickly show you Pepsi Man, just so you can see how it runs, even though this is a fairly basic PS1 game. PS1 emulation's probably about 90% there on this. It's fine. It's stretched, but it's fine. Just ran into a car, but that's okay. Once again, it looks good. It is quite sharp. It's just not as bright as some other consoles, but for a cheap handheld, it's doing pretty good so far. If you can get an idea, me just falling over all the stuff all the time, Pepsi Man's fine. The last thing we have is PSP. Before I go into that, just as a quick summary, NES, perfectly fine. Super Nintendo, perfectly fine. Game Boy and Game Boy Color, perfectly fine. Game Boy Advance, not quite there, but it's good enough. All the arcade stuff runs pretty good. N64 runs okay, but it all depends on the game, mapping the controls, and general N64 emulation that makes N64 on this just a little bit iffy. It's playable, but just not at the best quality. PlayStation 1 runs pretty good, as I said, about 90% there. For the asking price of this, you are getting some good emulation options, but you are fairly locked down with the selection of emulators that are on this, because this console is definitely capable of doing a lot more, and I'll talk about that a bit more in the conclusion. But I'll just go to PSP, which we've actually got a whole bunch of games on here, and these are actually in PSP format, so I'm going to open up eFootball 2023 just to see what it is. Is this a custom PSP game? Because they didn't make 2023 PSP games, it's in another language. It's just a soccer game that they've rebranded, yeah. I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way, but it works. The controls for PSP definitely need to be fine-tuned. I just want to try the Terminator. I didn't try the Terminator while testing Big Head Games the Terminator. Okie dokie. Let's see how this runs. Oh, it's like a Smash TV clone sort of thing. But yeah, you can see the controls are a little bit sort of back to front. But that's not a true PSP game though. I'll show you a true PSP game, which I was going to add my own PSP game onto this, but I decided on Need for Speed Most Wanted. I was going to try Vice City Stories, but I think Most Wanted gives you a good idea of PSP emulation. So this is Need for Speed on this. And surprising enough, it runs okay. It's definitely playable. Oh, I just done handbrake, whoops. And while I'm losing, you get a good idea of how it runs. The emulation on this console isn't too bad. I was expecting a lot worse, but the fact that it runs PSP at a decent frame rate is quite good. And if you were to use the custom firmware, you would probably get a lot better performance out of this, for sure. You have to sort of also question, PSPs are kind of cheap, and it's so easy to do custom firmware on a PSP. You could grab a PSP console secondhand and just grab all the games and off you go. there's sort of no need for PSP on one of these things, unless you've got something that's really good, like the Ambient console that I reviewed a while back. That was capable of playing so much more than this cheapo thing, but that's a lot more expensive. With showing you PSP, I think that gives you a good idea of how everything runs on this. And what I can say with the console, while it does feel good, the screen is good, and the emulation is okay, there's plenty of other consoles from Ambient that are likely a lot better than this, because most of them actually come with Linux already on them, and most of the controls are already pre-mapped, and you can adjust the screen ratio and stuff. With this, you are so locked down with what you can do, and the control mapping is just really all over the place. The D-pad on this I have to criticize because it's just really poor when it comes to trying to go in all directions, because you're pressing left and up at the same time as you're sort of trying to press up. The analog sticks do feel okay. They're not the best, but they'll do. And as I said earlier, the buttons do feel a bit mushy, but they're okay. So this console does have some positives to it. It's just this that they're using on top of Android just isn't really the best, and it should have a lot more functionality. And also, if you're wondering as well, these two USB Type-C ports, you cannot connect this to a computer. I've tried several times. If you use on the go, it doesn't work because it's only for on the go. So you use DC, but that's only for charging. So you can't connect this to a computer. You just have to take the micro SD card out, put it into the computer, copy the ROMs, do everything, and put it back in here. Minor inconvenience there. From the looks of it, the people that actually make this, which they're actually called GAMEMT, which I didn't even know, they're making improvements to this, which could be good in the long run, but it really depends if the company's going to follow up with it. But the emulation market is very oversaturated. There's a lot of these consoles just kicking around out there that are more than capable for the same amount of money. I know this is a bit of an unfair comparison, but here's the RG Nano that I paid $50 for. It is absolutely tiny, but it plays anything at full speed. It's just you have to play it like this, and the shoulder buttons up here, and it's just so weird, but the software on this is pretty user-friendly, and Ambient does offer so many other consoles that will definitely beat this. Yeah, you get some pretty LED lights with this, but that's about it. And I can also say from experience, the D-pads on the Ambient are way better than what this has to offer. If you are looking to purchase one of these, I would definitely say look at the alternatives rather than this, or just keep following the development of the custom firmware for this. Then maybe this will be something to look back to. But if you're not wanting to do custom firmware and are just expecting to pull this out of the box and start playing games on it no problems, then this probably isn't the console for you, because there's just quite a few downsides, especially with the controls and adding games and all that. I will say though, if it was maybe like a $40 console, I'd say worth it to pick it up just to play around with. But as it sits at $76 Australian for the base model, there's other alternatives out there. I think that's my pretty long-winded conclusion about the GAMEMT E6 console that looks like an ROG Ally cross Steam Deck cross several other consoles. I want to tear this apart and see the guts of this thing, because I'm quite interested to see what they've done. And their claims on the listings that they have cooling fans in here, it doesn't seem like there is. The console does get quite warm while I was testing this out. I'm pretty confident that there's no cooling fans in here. And with all the screws removed, I can just pop it open and take a look at the innards of this, which all the buttons just fell out. And sure enough, there's no cooling fans. So definitely a bit misleading there. We do have two speakers on the back there, and these don't work in proper stereo, they're just two speakers. The battery itself looks fairly decent, so let's just check to see the capacity of it, which it doesn't have any information on it. But judging by the size of it, I don't think that's a 5,000 mAh battery. I'd be more inclined to say that's 3,600 mAh, but without any concrete information on here, I can't quite confirm that. But just from other phones and consoles that I've taken a look at before, that would just seem to line up with 3,600 mAh. If I am incorrect about the battery capacity, feel free to tell me in the comments below. But we do have some flex cables for the LEDs, I'd say. And taking all the screws out, I should be able to just lift the board straight out of here. There we go. Flipping it over, there's the board with the ROG chip RK3326 in it, and we do have another ROG chip module just there, and then we do have a module just there which would be our 1 gig of RAM and 8 gigs of storage. And it also says YX13 game version 2 right there, which would indicate that this is the later revision that has been locked down a lot further than the other ones that most people have already reviewed. But the chip that they advertised is correct in this. It definitely has 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigs of storage. It's just unfortunate that this is locked down as much as it is. Would have been cool just to boot straight into Android and then load up emulators and go from there. That would have been really good, but instead they've locked it down with their own thing, and well, you can't really do too much at this point in time. I think there's still a possibility of breaking into this though. You can also see the LEDs around the controls just there. You've got 4 LEDs there, and then you've got 8 around each analog stick, so you've got 20 LEDs in this. that makes it all light up, which is a nifty little gimmick, and it makes the console stand out a little bit more. But I think that is pretty much it when it comes to this. Before I completely seal it back together, I'll just make sure it still works. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. No, it still works. It still works. Maybe I killed the on button. No, wait, what? Okay, it's fine. Never mind. It's okay. I didn't destroy the analog stick. Don't know about this one though, but it should be okay. That's having a look at this thing, I guess. I've pretty much covered everything on this. I don't think it's factory anymore, but it's good enough, I think. But at least we know that there's no cooling fans in this, or no cooling for that fact. But I can say this console does have potential. It's just a matter of if the company behind this maybe make an update or something that might help push performance, or key mapping, or a bit more customization. Just might help this console a little bit, but as it stands now, I just don't think it's worth it for the current price. But hey, you folks wanted me to have a look at this thing, and I'm glad I did, because I don't really make a lot of gaming videos. So I hope you've all enjoyed this one, because it did turn into a very rambly video at the end of the day on a console that doesn't do too much, but I really want to break into Android on it though, and try and do some other stuff, but we'll save that for another day. A big thank you to all of these folks displayed on screen for donating during that live stream when we found this. I really do appreciate it, and I hope I've delivered a decent enough review of this thing. I've tried to take into consideration the price and what it has to offer, and I hope my conclusion was kind of okay, I guess. You'll have to let me know down in the comments how I did, but thank you very much everyone for donating towards seeing this on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and I know a whole lot of other people have already reviewed this already, but I thought I'd just do my own take on it, and I probably haven't brought anything new to the table, and people have probably already seen all the other reviews on this and already know what to expect, but I hope I may have given a better conclusion or something. I don't know. As long as you folks enjoyed it, that's what makes me happy at the end of the day. And of course, if you're hearing me ramble, that means you've made it to the end of the video, so thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. But if you had to use timestamps to skip through the video and stuff, if you wanted to just see the gameplay segment, then that's why the timestamps are there, so you can just hop, skippity jump straight through, and you don't have to sit back for 50 odd minutes just waiting for me to get to the actual gaming segment. But that'll do it in another installment in the iWish series, looking at the ROG Ally cross Steam Deck, cross a whole bunch of other console bootleg clone thing. I hope you all enjoyed this one for what it was, and as I said, let me know what you think of this one down in the comments below, and if you do have any ideas of how to break into Android on this, let me know. But otherwise, I think I might save that for a live stream, because that will be fun. But until the next time I see you all, please take care, stay safe, be good people, and I'll see you all for the next AliExpress item, which I think I saved the best for last, the iPhone 15 Pro Max clone that just doesn't know what it is. It's kind of all over the place, but stay tuned for that one. I'm pretty sure you'll be excited to see that one. But until then, keep being awesome, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye for now. If you like this content, feel free to leave a like or a dislike if you didn't. Thanks heaps for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.